And the last one is context. Okay, so what is the consumer situation when they are interacting with each touch point? So again, I've pared it down to 5 things. Here are the 5 things to look out for. What are the triggers? Now, consumers may have different triggers that lead them to a particular action. So for example, you might buy your Converse shoes because, you know, the one that you had kind of, you know, maybe the sole fell off and you just need a new pair of shoes. Or you might be a shoe whore and you might have 100 pairs of sneakers at home. I actually know friends who have that. So if you understand what the trigger is, for the first person, what triggered that person's need to buy a pair of new shoes was simply out of necessity. I mean, that person is, I only need 1 pair of shoes. When that pair of shoes falls apart, I just go out and buy another one. Whereas the second person is more of a collector. Right? This person probably wants like the latest design for every season of shoes. Now, the way you would market to that person and the kind of campaigns you would create for that person would be very different. Okay? So look at the triggers, look at the pain points. Okay, look at the pain points. So I'm going to go back to my cosmetics example, just because there are lots of ladies in the audience. A pain point is a consumer struggle. It's a consumer struggle or a barrier. Yeah, not using it before. Okay, another one? Price. Yes, and one more? Finding the right color, right? So those are your consumer pain points. That's what's preventing someone to actually go ahead with a purchase. So when you start your campaign idea or your product idea, those are the places you need to start, okay? Environmental influences. It could be sound, it could be noise, it could be stress, it could be if someone is using an app in a traffic situation, it's just you being aware of what are some of the unique environmental factors that go into play. Is someone looking at something in bright sunlight or not? So it's a little bit of ergonomics, but I think that if you can show that appreciation and that sensitivity to a consumer's environment, it will make you a more successful user experience designer. User priorities, we've talked about that, so I won't go into too much detail. The last one is very interesting. Distractions or points of disengagement. One of the things I found is sometimes when there's too much information, I just kind of give up. When you feel like there's just too much coming at you. So, you know, think about what the distractions or points of disengagement could be, because you might be able to build in ways for people to save, for example, as they go along, or you may have them sign in so that wherever they drop off, there is a track, they're leaving a track of what the user has seen, and that will in turn make you a better marketer, because you would be able to know the next time that they re-engage, you will know what was the last thing that they were on. So then you're continuing that conversation with the user. Okay? So personalization, saving, you know, those are just examples of features and functionality. So are you creating campaigns that take into account the user's context? So this is a little bit more advanced, but these are things that we think about in industry. So we think about the search keywords that are used. That tells you something about the user's context, right? Because if you think about, remember, you're trying to reverse engineer, you know, kind of what the person was trying to do. So usually search keywords, even in the design of sites, tend to be a nugget, a whole like wealth of information about what you should be naming things, what you should be calling them, how they should be grouped. That's very, very insightful. So think about search keywords as well in campaigns, right? You might create an A/B version of a campaign, and maybe depending on what keywords they typed into Google, you might present them with a different campaign. Point of entry to your message. So how are they finding you? Did they find you by visiting the brand's website, or did they find you because they saw a pop-up ad, or they, you know, a friend sent them a link, a recommendation? So think about how what the point of entry is to the message, okay? Because there are times when you have to tell them more, but there are times when you may not have to tell them as much. Personalization, I talked about that. So if you can have users authenticate themselves, meaning log in, sign in, that gives you a way to track their behavior, it gives you a way to engage with the consumer. A lot of that happens on sites that you don't even know. But if media teams look at the path that's taken by consumers, they're able to say, okay, well, 80% of people who did this, are doing that thing next. So you're able to mine that data and almost try to be smart about what you think the consumer is needing. That area is still very, there's still a lot of unanswered questions in that realm, but I feel like I have to kind of give you a sense that that's kind of where things are headed. So data mining is going to be critical. And then the last one, of course, tracking and monitoring the consumer's behavior so that you can continue the conversation.